Hello everyone and welcome back to my channel. The version 2.10.0 of the My Linux for Work Dotfiles is now available. But this is not the big news. The big news is that the My Linux for Work Dotfiles are now My Linux for Work OS. And you can test the configuration with a new Live ISO. With the My Linux for Work OS Live ISO, you can install this advanced configuration for Hyprland without any risk on your hardware or in a virtual machine and can test all features of that configuration. This setup will not replace the possibility to install the My Linux for Work OS on your preferred distro, on Arch Linux, on Fedora, or on openSuse. It's an additional way to test the configuration on your preferred setup. The Dotfiles Installer is still the tool to keep the Dotfiles up to date in the Live ISO or on your system. If you like that video and if you like My Linux for Work OS, please give me a thumbs up and subscribe to my channel. And with that, let's jump in. I will show you now how you can install the My Linux for Work OS on a virtual machine, but the same process also works on a real computer. So first of all, what we have to do is to open the My Linux for Work homepage. It's mylinuxforwork.github.io/dotfiles. And when you scroll down, you see here already the link to download the Live ISO. I click the link and you see that the download just starts. It's around 2.8 gigs file here that you have to download, so this will take a while. After that, and if you are planning to test and try out My Linux for Work OS on a real computer, on bare metal, you can do this by creating a bootable USB stick, a bootable USB drive. On Windows, you can do this easily with Rufus, very well recommended for Windows. On Linux, you can do this with Balena Etcher, but there are also a lot of alternatives on Linux available. Just choose your preferred USB tool. Yeah. When you want to test the My Linux for Work OS in a virtual machine, you have to install QEMU, a KVM with Virt Manager environment. So a system that can run a virtual machine. I found here that very nice, straightforward installation instruction for Arch Linux. But there are also a lot of tutorials for all other distributions. But this is very nice described. All required steps are listed here. And after that, you should have Virt Manager and the environment to run a virtual machine on your system. I will add a link to that page as well into the video description. And the download is done, so we can start. I will open now the Virt Manager, and you see that I have already some virtual machines available for testing, but now I want to create a new one. So I click here on New Virtual Machine. I click here on Forward. I now have to select in Downloads the ISO that I just have downloaded. I choose that volume. And I need to enter here the base distribution. The My Linux for Work OS ISO is based on Arch Linux. That's why I select here Arch Linux. Forward. And now this depends on your hardware. So in my case, I will select the half of my RAMs for the virtual machine and 12 CPUs, but this depends on your system. So you have to decide here what is here the right balance to run a virtual machine. Now I click on Forward. I will only reserve for testing a disk image of 10 gigs. This is absolutely enough for testing purposes. And Forward, and I will give the virtual machine a name, My Linux for Work OS. I will customize the configuration before the installation because I want to switch the firmware from BIOS to UEFI Click on apply, and we are running Hyprland, and Hyprland requires 3D acceleration. So in Video Virt.io, I enable here 3D acceleration. And in Display Spice, I need to switch the listen type to none and activate OpenGL. Apply. And now that's it. Now we can start to run the Live ISO. I will switch now to full screen. And the system is booting up. You see it here. Welcome to my Linux for Work OS. It's an Arch-based system. And if you have already installed Arch, you know all of these messages. Everything looks familiar. And the system is booting up. And we are running now the My Linux for Work OS on an ISO. This is a bit slower than a real hardware. Yeah, so we are booting here into a live environment, and we will automatically log into the system with a user called live user. The mouse pointer is already there. And in a second, also the rest should come up. Here we are. The wallpaper is already there. On top, you see now Waybar with the glass theme. At the bottom, you see NWG doc Hyprland. And here is the My Linux for Work welcome up. Very good. So everything is up and running. You see here, I want to do two changes. I want to change the keyboard layout, and I want to change the screen resolution. And on the new version, you can do this here on settings keyboard. And you see that in the background now, the editor opens, and I switch the keyboard layout from US to DE on my system. I can close it, and I want to change the screen resolution. Yeah, I click here on monitors. I can now close the welcome up, and I change here the screen resolution. Let's choose here 1920 to 1080. And I click on apply. And now this is a side effect of virtual machine. If you are on a real hardware, the screen resolution will change immediately, but unfortunately not in a virtual machine. That's why I have to close here the monitor settings, and I have to log out once. And here's the live user, no password needed, just press return, and you are back in the system, and now you have the correct screen resolution. So, and the system is up and running and fully working. With super key return, you can open a terminal. And another terminal. With super key command return, you open Rofi, and all apps are there. You have the calendar app. You have here the sidebar. You can change from dark to light mode. So everything is there and working. Very good. Let's change the wallpaper with super key Shift W. Let's close the terminal with super key Q, and let's change the wallpaper again. So everything is working as expected. If you want to install now from a live environment the system on real hardware, you can do this as well. You open a terminal and enter sudo install my Linux for Work OS. This installation script is currently in beta, so I'm still testing, but I can give you an impression how it looks like. First of all, if you start the script, you have to select your hard drive. In my case, it's VDA with the 10 gigs, you can remember. I can define a host name, my Linux4W OS, a username, a password, and then I can confirm the installation here with yes. You see the summary on top, and now the live system will be copied onto your hardware. And you see it's ButterFS system with 2 subvolumes, so everything is there, and you see the progress of the copy command. In that case, it's based on rsync, and rsync will now copy the live system onto your hard disk. This will take a while, so let's see, and I'm back in a second when the installation is done. And here we are. Installation is done. Perfect. Now it's time to reboot and see if we can boot into the installed My Linux4W OS booting from the hard drive. Here is the grub boot menu. I select Arch Linux and we are booting into My Linux4W OS. Here is the new user, so I have to log in with my password. And here's the system installed. Very good. And you see it already, it's much faster. What you have to do here is, again, to check the keyboard layout. Yeah, so because it's a new user and a new user will be created with the US keyboard layout. But you have already seen how easy it is to change. And the same with the monitor settings. Here we are. Apply. Keep the changes. Let's close it. I'm still in a virtual machine, so one logout to enable the screen resolution is needed. And before you ask, yes, the next version will have an SDDM theme that looks better and it's not the default anymore. And here we are back in the system. Welcome app is still there. One additional information. If you want to enable wireless network, you can do this here by clicking network. And you see in the background that you have the network manager TUI here that you can then, where you can select the wireless network directly. What you can also do is, let's open back the welcome app. You can toggle here the network manager applet, and then you have the manager network applet here on top in the waybar. Yeah, and then you can of course connect to a wireless connection. You can connect it to a VPN connection and so on. So this is also, I think, an important information. But that's it mainly. Yeah, that is the new My Linux4W OS installed from a live ISO. Test the system without any risk before installing something. And when I switch to my real hardware back and go back here to the website, you see that, of course, you can still install the My Linux4W OS and the related Dotfiles on top of the supported Linux distribution with the Dotfiles installer. Yeah, still possible. And you see that also here in the installed OS in the virtual machine is that the Dotfiles installer is available as well. And you see that the Dotfiles are here already activated. So, and when an update of the Dotfiles is there of the My Linux4W OS, a message will pop up and then you can update the system here by clicking that update button. And the latest version then will be installed. This is the new My Linux4W OS in the version 2.10.0. Now also available as a live ISO. Easy for you to test, and if you like it, you can install it immediately on your system. If you have ideas for new features, or if you find a problem during the installation method, please open an issue on GitHub. And with that, see you next time.